What's up, chat? Welcome back. It's Tuesday. No, it's not. What am I talking about? It's Monday. We're talking about this weekend in Warhammer. How's everybody doing? We're finally back in the official Tactical Tortoise studio. It was a great odyssey, but I'm back. We can do this stuff. I traveled last weekend down to Florida for the Onslaught team event, and then I traveled over to Angry Joe's studio in Texas. We played a couple games of Warhammer 40k over there. I played them on stream. I guess there are somebody messaged me and said there were some issues with the stream VOD. I'll have to get in touch with the team over there and see what's up with that. But I know that he was looking to make a sort of like official edited battle report out of that game. We played an absolutely insane game of 40k over on his stream. I played a couple other games with those guys and hung out with them for a bit, and then was back on Saturday, back into the back over here in Tactical Tortoise land. And yeah, it's been a hell of a weekend this past weekend for Warhammer 40k. We have a lot of results to talk about, a lot of really interesting kind of stuff going down, movements in the metagame. Chaos Space Marines back in a big way. Chaos Knights also looking pretty good, so it's pretty wild. A little bit of an announcement beforehand. Obviously, I will be live today and tomorrow. We're going to try this new schedule. We talked about it a little bit last week while I was traveling, but I'm going to try to stream Mondays and Tuesdays in the morning. I think that's probably what people, what the plants crave, hopefully. So, yeah, we'll see how this schedule works, and if people are into it, then we'll continue to do that. Tomorrow, I think we're going to talk about some more specific faction analysis. Today, though, I wanted to do sort of the regularly scheduled thing. We'll probably take a peek at some lists that didn't make it into the Monday video. Obviously, Best Armies in 40k did release this morning. So if you want to hear me talk about my top picks for each of these, each army in each of these factions, then go check that video out. But in addition, I'm also going to be live this weekend. I'm going to be over at the Standoff GT in beautiful Portland, Maine. If you're coming to that event, please come say hi. If you haven't already and you want to come to the event, please register. I think I do have a link in my. They were kind enough to sponsor the videos last weekend, so there are links over there in those. If you want to come hang out, but it's kind of it's a little bit of a, it has a 40k GT, which is going to be very competitive. This area tends to be kind of extremely competitive. We have a pretty broad range of like the top 100 ITC players in here, so it's going to be pretty nuts. But they also have painting competitions. They also have trivia competitions. There's other stuff going on at the event as well. So it's going to be a good time. If you haven't registered, please come hang out with me. But otherwise, you can hang out with me on stream, and you can watch the event vicariously and wish you were there. So that's going to be this weekend. I'm going to be heading down on Friday to stream that, but I will be live Saturday and Sunday with that. But as it stands right now, yeah, we can friggin' talk about some 40k lists. How's it going, everybody? AJC Toast, please tell you can spam Obliterators and Venom Crawlers. Venom Crawlers, they see some play in the Soulforge War Pack, but they're kind of okay. Obliterators, though, did see a lot of play. If you watched the video I released this morning, we do talk about Obliterators quite a bit in there, because Obliterators are looking pretty solid right now. Jean-Marc, my pronunciation of German names was good. Oh, I appreciate that. I do my best. Sometimes I do go through and I train myself on the pronunciation. If a name is particularly tough, I will look up the pronunciation and I'll do a couple of takes and pick the best one. That does happen occasionally. I think this week I ripped a band-aid off on all the damn pronunciation, but I'm glad to hear that it went well. Every once in a while I do butcher one, and I do apologize. my poor sheltered American upbringing. If you put too many consonants together, I don't know what to do. My accent just can't handle it. Eduardo, coming from Spain. How's it going? Painting some Adeptus Mechanicus up to 30 Rust Stalkers. Hell yeah, dude. Hope you have some Taraxi in there. We talked about last week what makes bad factions good. And it seems like the answer was your win rate with Adeptus Mechanicus is directly proportional to the number of Taraxi in your list. That was a very stark trend, at least between the lists that we looked at. Although obviously it's a low sample size, but it was a funny takeaway. 25 Taraxi, that sounds pretty good. I think you're gonna be okay for sure. All right, folks. Let's dive in. Let's talk about some freaking lists. So I do have here. We're over on DGI. With our friends over at Discount Games. We have the top list results here. We also have a list of all the events that occurred this weekend, at least on BCP. I think what I'm going to do, because I didn't talk about them in my video, is talk about the Utah Open. So here's what happened. It was getting up to almost 10 p.m. in my time zone. I had all of the other results tabulated last night, and I had taken down notes. I'd done all the homework, and this event had like an hour left of the timer, and I was like, okay, all right, guys. It went 6 rounds, so it went 2 days of full 3 games per day, and it's also just on a time zone. It's an awkward time zone because it's on the West Coast time zone. So unfortunately, at the time I was recording the Best Armies in 40K video, this event had not completed, the Utah Open. So I didn't have the results from that. I did put them into the faction breakdown, the metagame breakdown, but I didn't go through their lists. But what we can do right now is we can talk about the list that went undefeated here. We have a little bit of Orks from John Holbrook. This was also streamed by Wargames Live, by the way, folks. So if you want to watch these lists in action, these were available. These are the VODs are available over on Wargames Live channel. How do you transport 25 Taraxi? It's just shoebox. Just a big shoebox. Let's try to take this one serious, John Holbrook says. Well, apparently he did well enough to go 6-0, so he's nailing it. Orks looked great this weekend, by the way. So I think Orks. It was kind of theorized that they would be in a pretty good spot, but it looks like they're sort of jumping from strength to strength. Interestingly, we saw, I think, basically the top 3 detachments out of the book. Actually, I don't know if we saw any Dread Mob results this weekend, but we did see Bully Boys and Warhorde get wins, and it looks like Green Tide also getting a win. So a lot of internal diversity within the Orc faction, which is actually super interesting. This is running 3 Pain Boys. These are mostly just they grant the Feel No Pain to Orc units, to Orc Boy units, and then they can once per game regenerate models with the Grot Orderlies. So they let you you want to be taking casualties in order to trigger Go Get 'em with the stratagem for the detachment. So usually you're kind of like forcing through that resilience as much as possible. We then have triple war boss, a weird boy with brutal but cunning, and 2 weird boys with brutal but cunning. Now I know that this detachment got absolutely reamed. Previously they had their +1 to charge based on the battle round number. I believe that has been capped at a flat charge bonus. Let me see if I can double check that, because it's I don't remember. It is +1 to charge. You get charge rerolls if you have 10 or more models in your unit. That still gives the weird boys a greater than 50% chance to get out of the to complete their charge when they teleport, which is the sort of the big deal there. Previously, you would just hold a weird boy till round 4 or 5, and you would get basically an almost automatic charge out of deep strike with their to jump. But obviously, you can't do that anymore. But still, an 8-inch charge, because they're getting +1 for the stratagem for 1 CP with a baked-in reroll, means that you're I think a 65, somewhere around a 65%er to make that charge, and that's probably pretty fair. Just in general, the awkward part is like hanging your game plan on a 65 is usually a little bit awkward, but it isn't the worst idea in the world. Yeah, that was probably one of the bigger ones. I mean, they did change Go Get 'em, a little bit, and obviously the detachment ability got like turbo nuked, but the Tide of Muscle I think was, in my opinion, Go Get 'Em was like maybe super dumb. I don't know. And the detachment ability did make boys probably too hard to kill. But I think the problem with the detachment ability was that it was, I think it ended up applying to too many units. If everything just applied to boys, I think you're okay. The weird part of it was that the charge roll bonus in the late game basically made you like automatic, that you got a bunch of, like, there were a bunch of secondaries and secret missions, excuse me, that you'd basically automatically complete. You could prevent enemies from scoring really, really trivially. And I think that's where like the actual late game power from Green Tide came out. It was relatively solvable, but I think some armies just like simply didn't have the technology to defeat these boys units that had automatic charges wherever they wanted, especially because you're dumping 40 OC on objectives anywhere. And I think that was the real problem. But it looks like we're overcoming that just fine. We're rocking, this is 5 units of 20 boys. A single truck. There is a 10 model unit in there, so a little bit more of a problem solver. 2 Gretchen units, 2 Commando units for early game forward operation, plus 2 units of Storm Boys for utility. So basically just hanging our hat on 110 boys, and then we have a bunch of little utility units as well. Pretty standard for an army out of this detachment. Aeldari missing big time this weekend. That is true. Yeah, I wonder if that. So this weekend was a little bit weird because one thing that we did see was there wasn't too many like huge events, right? There was the Raccoon Rumble, which was very big, and a couple of kind of like major-ish level events. But other than that, it was like sort of relatively smaller GTs. So we didn't necessarily have the breadth of results that we are typically looking at. In addition, it was kind of compressed. I mentioned this during my Monday video, but the results have been kind of condensed down to a couple of factions really overperforming. Chaos Space Marines were one of them. As we can see, Chaos Space Marines killed it on a bunch of different results. Chaos Demons, Orks, in fact, were another faction like that. Those are factions, maybe Chaos Space Marines less so, but things like Genestealer Cults and things like Orks are factions that Eldar have traditionally struggled with, just because they don't really have the attack volume or the sort of number of small cheap units that they can trade efficiently with those armies. So it might be that the metagame is toxic to Eldar. It could also mean that they just had an off week and that like the super strong Eldar players did fall down this week. I think if we continue to see a trend of that, then I would start getting worried about Eldar. But as a one-off week, I think it was too skewed towards specific factions to really look at it too hard. There were a bunch of factions that were missing from the top, in fact, from winning events. From a Talk War player, the reason they're seeing a shift away from Warhorde is because it's too telegraphed. If you go second, Bully Boys can rely on a second one, Green Tide can rely on its invuln. That tracks a lot, yeah. It does feel like Warhorde has such a spike of power. Like the combination of Makari's banner plus Unbridled Carnage on the Waturn is like ludicrous, like a ludicrous increase in power level. You have 5+ lethal sustains on like 90 attacks or whatever, and it just goes absolutely crazy. But it is reliant on the Waturn, and if you don't get a great WA, then it sucks super hard. You do have a lot of really good stratagems in that detachment, and I think that it's like passively, I think, ends up being better than a lot of the other detachments, but definitely I think that the fact that you're relying on that Waturn to get most of your damage out is a little bit awkward. If you can like stagger your commitments, basically, where the other player gives you like one big thing that you want to wah and kill, and then holds the rest of the army back, and you're like, oh, well, I'll kill that, and your opponent's like, great, now kill the second big thing, and you're just like, ugh, maybe I might be able to do that. Like we're gonna put all our faith in Gazgul Thraka and a couple of War Boss Power Claws, but those aren't the most reliable things in the entire world. Aquilons and all the pressure lists coming into the meta with against Gene Circles and Orcs don't help. Yeah, for sure. We'll see if Aquilons survive. I do think that they're probably still going to see play, but we do see that World Championships of Warhammer FAQ that's kind of nerfing them. So we'll see if that continues, if they get the official change in the future. All right, let's go back to Utah Open. Let's talk about Evan stumping his Dark Angels. I know a couple of people were disappointed I didn't get to the Dark Angels list in my video this morning. We're rocking Gladius Task Force Dark Angels. Ooh, this looks like a classic. this list might be. Oh, 2 Repulsor Executioners is interesting, but this list it feels like it might be a list from a couple of weeks ago that we're just continuing to play. There's a crazy stat out there that 85% War Horde loss at top tables that goes second, and 85% of War Horde loss at top tables that go second. Is that what the stat is? That sounds about right. I would be I guess Bully Boys can kind of get around that by just echoing the wah for a long enough period of time that it's fine. But I would hazard to guess that that's probably just sort of how orcs work right now. The top of battle round timing for the wah is like so stupid. It should be start of a player's command phase, and then it should work until the end of that, or the start of that player's next command phase. It's crazy that it's one battle round only. Yeah, I don't know, chat. I don't know. I like the capacity to use it defensively, which is why it's a start of battle round timing. But the fact that you have no capacity to wah aggressively is like so insane. Yeah, I think it's just a failure of design, to be honest. But it's something that could easily be repaired, and I think that you could kind of like rein orcs back in a little bit if you made their army ability more consistent. Because right now, orcs are like the definition of this 50-50 army, where like maybe they're a 55%er because occasionally your opponent can't deal with the body skew that you're bringing, like the unit count skew, and so you get free wins every once in a while, and you're like dramatically favored if you're going first, which basically like brings you to parity, I guess. Which means that they then like get buffed to bring themselves ahead of the curve, but all it does is like reinforce that kind of like divergent win rate, right? If you have extra units because your army's cheaper, like artificially made cheaper because you lose half your games automatically on going second, then the games where you go first are just more powerful, and so it's like a fine line to tread, and I hope that they fix it in a future update. I think that we're looking at we're staring down the barrel of a rules update probably in January, and I imagine that that's when that would happen. So I would give it 2 months or so, and we might get a rewrite to the law, which I would kind of love. On one hand, I really don't like the kind of culture that the game has right now of waiting until data slates come out to fix problems that we have with the game. I would rather them like do balancing tweaks and let the community sort of figure out the best course of action to answer things in a metagame standpoint. But as long as we are benefiting from a sort of exuberant level of rules changes, then we might as well get the changes that we'd like. That makes the game more functional. All right, we're talking about Dark Angels though. We've got 3 Assault Jumping Intercessor units, 3 units of Deathwing Knights, 1 unit of Inner Circle Companions, so a bodyguard unit for Asriel to jump into, plus 2 Repulsor Executioners, 2 Scout Squads, a Calidus Assassin. So we have a lot of uppy downy in the Scouts and the Calidus Assassin, a little bit of forward operation, a lot of onboard utility from the Jump Back Assault Intercessor units. Interesting that we're still rocking these guys, but I guess the fact that it's a 12-inch move, relatively hardy, resilient, medium infantry utility unit that also hits pretty hard in melee is generally just very good. The benefit that Assault Intercessors have over something like Suppressors, for example, is the fact that they can clear an enemy off an objective. Like, they will go into 10 cultists and kill them all, whereas a similar utility unit will struggle with that, which is why they're worth the extra points over those other units. But It is definitely we're feeling the pain a little bit of these recent nerfs. This army is already down a couple of points, and we're paying the new points for Deathwing Knights. But clearly it's still working, so that's okay. Switch to triple Vindicator and Dark Angels. Interesting. Yeah, the Repulsor Executioner is it is very interesting. I actually like, honestly, the comparison with the Lancer, in my opinion, is like very damning to the Executioner. You basically pay 60 points for the enhanced defensive profile, but it's like bigger. It's it has more anti-infantry guns, which is nice, I guess, but it's less exciting. But you're getting basically the same damage output without the baked-in rerolls, which makes it so much less consistent, and that is interesting. But definitely for 220 points, I don't think the Repulsor Executioner is like a bad profile. Having a super long range, like super powerful laser destroyer gun for sort of anti-tank clearing, it forces your opponent to play super cagey early game. It gives you a little bit of horde clear, and that might be one of the reasons that we're taking them. We were just talking about how hordes are really prevalent right now, and the fact that you do get this big anti-tank profile, but also you just get like 30 little shots, so you can just use them to get down a bunch of infantry models if you really need to, is a sort of added benefit, I guess. So I'm talking myself around. I literally started the sentence off by saying I don't know if the defensive array is that exciting, and we've full circled and been like, actually, it's probably pretty impactful. That's probably a hefty consideration. Do you put the JPI in there for added threat range? I don't believe so. I don't think you can do that. Unless for some reason the Executioner uniquely can embark jump pack units, but essentially no other Space Marine transport can. That's not entirely true, but it is generally true. Oh. I was looking for where their Executioner... where the transport capacity was on the Executioner datasheet. I couldn't find it, and I realized I was on a Lehman Russ Executioner. Oh, you can. So you can embark jump pack units, but they take up the space of 2 models, so you only have a capacity of 3. So you can embark jump pack, but you don't have the transport capacity to actually do so on the 5-man units. You would have to have a normal repulsor to do that. That's really interesting. I guess that means you could put... I guess that means that you could put... Why does Centurion models take up the space of 3? That just means you can't embark a Centurion. Unless it's taking casualties, I guess. That's so funny. I guess that means you could put, like, Inceptors inside. Or... I guess jump pack characters? That's weird. I don't really know what the utility of that is very much, but I guess suppressors. Yeah, suppressors might actually be the answer. Yeah, suppressors are pretty good. Because suppressors, you don't actually really want them on the table, and the extra 3 inches disembark from them is pretty transformative. Sanguinary Guard 3-man with no character attached. Let's go. Who needs their like leadership triggers? Their bodyguard trigger. The weird thing about the Repulsor Executioner transport capacity, it's like nice to have. I think it's you know, you might as well, right? But it's not a unit that you wants to operate like a transport. It's not like a Land Raider or a Redeemer, and it's not like a Repulsor where it's this big heavy thing that wants to push up in the middle. So it has like these short range weapons and it wants to get close to your opponent. These guys want to stay at arm's reach. So the transport capacity doesn't typically help, and you never really want to like rush them out into the open because they are expensive, and they are not the hardest thing in the world to take out. So if you're just running them out to go score secondaries or whatever with your utility unit that you've embarked, things will go south for you very quickly. But what it does let you do is protect independent characters from artillery early game. It lets you get those extra 3 inches of movement off like weird angles and things. So it's only nice to have, but I think a lot of times you kind of the correct play is to forget about the transport capacity in most situations. Is my opinion on that. The Kaiba trap card, yeah. Yeah. Oh my god, I got something in my throat. Sorry, chat. I might warn you guys. So my city's on fire right now. I live basically next door to a wildlife, not a wildlife reservation, but like a land reservation, like a park area, and it's very heavily wooded, and when it gets dry, it catches fire a lot. So currently it's on fire. It's not dangerous or anything, but there's a lot of particulate, and so I've been breathing it. While I was recording my video yesterday, I was about like 30 minutes in, and I was like, "Oh boy, I feel it in my throat." So I might be a little coffee today, chat. So I apologize for that. Spend more time in analyzing it than GW did. Yeah, Games Workshop just likes to do that too. For lore stuff, you know. The Repulsor Executioner is basically like it's kind of the Primaris equivalent of like a Razorback almost. You know, I guess it's a little bit more battle tank than that, but it's got the big doors, so you might as well have it. But the other thing that you often see in here is sort of bare bones assault intercessors, because it does meaningfully improve their threat range, and that's a unit that you can just leave in the back to go deal with like a utility unit, and having the capacity to disembark them, you know, in the front or the back of the vehicle, plus the 3 inches disembark range, they actually get kind of a lot of additional quote-unquote movement out of it. So if somebody deep strikes like in the back, you could just yeet these little 5-man units at them. That's a nice way to use the transport capacity. I do like that. So the Executioner does not get Scout from Scout units. Just to be clear, chat, it is not a dedicated transport. It is just a transport. You have to be a dedicated transport to get Scout from an embarked unit. So embarking Scouts in it actually just removes Scouts from their datasheet, unfortunately. Yeah, I think the game would be really broken if non-dedicated transports could get Scout from anything. Yeah, for sure. You would definitely see scouting redeemers for sure. There would be a lot of really really powerful scouting units. But good stuff. This is mostly standard sort of Dark Angels fare. And yeah, it's cool. It's nice to see them still kicking around. They did get, we got a little bit of play out of Blood Angels this weekend, and we got a bunch of play out of Ultramarines, obviously. But it is nice to see that there is at least somewhat of a diversity to Space Marine chapters that are getting play, and it's not just one thing or the other. All right, folks. So those are the undefeated lists I didn't talk about. There's some other stuff that we can dive into. I think the California Cup's an interesting kind of an interesting place to take a peek, because they had multiple undefeated at the end. So if we go hang out with the California Cup, it was 88 players, but it ran 8 rounds. So we have a bunch of X and 1 players that we can talk about, including a couple more Blood Angels as well, which is kind of fun. Yeah, and Cursor's always good. Don't get me wrong, chat. A +1 to hit off of a scouting utility unit, it's pretty strong. And it's interesting because like you see Reavers get played a lot just because there's cheap scouts, but I almost wonder if you have the points left over, if there would be better as in Cursors, because that +1 to hit is so huge. Definitely a unit that I don't think gets enough play. It's crazy for most armies to have utility units like that, but the Space Marine one just also gives you a passive hit buff. That's crazy. All right. So let's dive into the California Cup and these 2 lists that have that we didn't get a chance to talk about in the video yesterday. Jake Jesianowski running some Hypercrypt Legion. We've got an Arisen Tyrant Chronomancer, Catan Shard of the Nightbringer, plus a Scorpec Lord, a Technomancer, and a Transcendent Catan. Big unit of Immortals. I imagine that they are getting the Chronomancer attachment because we have a Risen Tyrant, so they're going to get hit rerolls when they set up on the battlefield. So they have more chances to trigger their Tesla shots for rerolling their hits. We also have a unit of Canoptic Wraiths. That's where the Technomancer is going to be hanging out. that adds a little bit of a defensive bulwark. I guess it doesn't look like we're taking the big vehicles today, so we need a unit that can stand in the center of the table and really just like take fire, and the Canoptic Wraiths are good for that. They're 13 OC, I guess, if they're all jumping on an objective. So if you can Cosmic Precision them into funny places, they also can get some work done like that. 2 units of Death Marks for utility, a Flayed 1 unit as a forward operator, 2 Doomsday Arcs, 3 Locust Destroyers to do actions and stuff, and then a unit of 3 Locust Destroyers. Excuse me, Scorpec Destroyers. Misread that. Jesus. Big unit of 3 Scorpec Destroyers, and that is attaching in with a Scorpec Lord. Yeah, we got him right there. So, a little bit more sort of unit count oriented than we typically see out of Hypercrypt Legion these days. A lot of times we're looking at these armies that are running like bunches of vehicles, but this is just the 2 Doomsday Arcs, and is focusing a little bit more on the classic Hypercrypt Legion combos, like the big Immortal Brick. Chronomancer is also the Warlord, so we have an opportunity for a late game command insertion too, although that's less powerful than it was previously, but still probably a pretty strong play. It's very difficult, almost impossible to stop the Chronomancer from getting onto your objective unless you have Infiltrators or Omni-Scrambler auras, because they'll just Cosmic Precision to 3 inches away from you, even if you're screening out your objective, and then shoot and move and take the objective anyway. Steven Box is playing double Godhammer Land Raiders with Incursors. That's cool. Little fun fact, chat. That is in fact called the Phobos Pattern Land Raider. That's a little lore knowledge for you. Everyone calls it the Godhammer Pattern Land Raider because it has Godhammer Pattern las cannons, but that's just the classification of the weaponry. The Land Raider itself is the Phobos pattern. I learn a lot doing Tactical Tyrannosaurus videos. I'm becoming a lore guy. I'll turn into a lore YouTube channel pretty soon here. We're not gonna do list analysis anymore. We're gonna try to do book reviews. Anthony Vanilla from Art of War also saw some success this weekend with Blood Angels. Normally, World Eaters player. I guess we're just transitioning the skills over there to run some Liberator Assault Group. He's running a Captain with Ragefield Warrior. This dude, by the way, absolutely nuts. I assume the Blood Angels Captain is a... I actually don't know if he's a different datasheet than the standard Captain. It's probably worth looking at. No, he's exactly the same. Is there a difference between the regular Captain and Blood Angels Captain? I can't see one. I can't tell if there is. That's wild. But he gets the 2 once per game abilities. He gets Finest Hour, so the 3 extra attacks and devastating wounds. Plus the Ragefield Warrior is a once per game sustained hits 3. If you're attacking your Oath target, you can get full hit rerolls and you can fish for those sustains. I played against one of these guys. He's also got a Power Fist, so on the charge he's strength 10 with 6 attacks. So he's swinging 9 times with sustained hits 3. And if you are rerolling all your hit rolls, you probably drop like 2 and get 3 6s, so you're probably up 7 hits. So I think you hit on average 16 times with Strength 10 Devastating. I played against this last week, actually, and the one Blood Angels Captain, with no buffs, by the way, he was just had Oaths a moment. His unit had been killed. He hit a War Dog for like 30 damage. I think he did 12 devastating damage, and then handed like 6 saves over. It was nuts. This dude is insane. I imagine we have an Assault Intercessor squad for him to jump into too, because as soon as that dude gets wound rerolls from targeting enemies on objectives as well, he just goes even more crazy. He basically can like one tap like knights and stuff. If you don't have damage reduction, this dude will end your entire career. He's so silly. Oh, he gets an Inferno pistol and a Mastercrafted Chainsword. Okay. So he's just better? Oh, he's more expensive. Is that real? Oh no, he's not more expensive. He's the same cost. So he is just better than a regular captain. All right. Blood Angels don't get both captains though, right? Where would it say that if they did? I imagine that this would be a Warhammer community thing. Would it be in Codex, FAQ, and Errata Space Marines? Huh. So, hold up, chat. Can you take 6 captains in Blood Angels? Do we have to revisit this captain video? I did not know these were different data sheets. I am learning this right now. Yeah, wait. Blood Angels captain can lead other units as well. Oh, does he can lead the... Does that make sense? He can lead the Blood Angels like specific units? It doesn't look like it. Looks like his attachment options are the same. I mean, yeah, you could already fill a list with literally nothing but captains, right? Because they have so many different captain profiles. I did not realize that that Blood Angels give you 6 additional captain profiles. That's so nuts. Yeah, we're doing that. Hold up. I'm learning so much today. I love learning. I should go back to school. I love learning so much. All right. One moment, please. I don't know what that beep was. Alright, so we have Blood Angels captain. We have Blood Angels captain times 3. Captain times 3. And then Death Company captain, right? There are 2 Death Company captain profiles. What does the Death Company jump pack captain get? That's only 945 points, chat. We have so many points to spend. Can these guys take Power Fist? Does everybody get Power Fist? Oh yeah, they do. Literally all of them get Power Fists. Incredible, chat. I can't find all the captains. I have too many captains. Captain with jump pack. The captain with jump pack is not that exciting though, because he basically only has a leadership ability. The other guys are much more interesting because they have +1 strength when he's leading. Otherwise, he doesn't do anything. So we could take or leave those guys. I had no idea that they Blood Angels just had 9 unique captain entries. They have 3 totally unique captain data sheets. So we can do this, and then we can go like Gravis captains next. Oh, we're playing this. I'm sorry we've derailed the conversation. This is incredible. What a list. Alright, chat. That's good stuff. Put them into executioners. It comes full circle. Each executioner can have a jump pack captain and a regular captain, because it's. Or actually, we could have 2 jump pack captains and 2 regular captains, because they can embark jump pack units. Oh my god. Oh, I will forget about the Phobos captains, chat, because they're stupid and I hate them. They don't do anything. I guess they infiltrate. They're also like 60 points, right? Where are you at, Phobos Captain? What is it, Captain in Phobos armor? 70 points! 70 points for this piece of shit? Dude, are you kidding me? Why? Why is he so bad? Oh, jeez. Oh, jeez, chat. I guess you had to redeploy any infantry unit. That's cool. I thought it was just Phobos stuff. Maybe that changed in the codex and I didn't notice it. Terminator captains are kind of fun. Also, not a leadership ability. They just get reroll charges. That might be the next place you go. Three is like, you get 5 men. Captain Necron was a Blood Angels the whole time. Amazing, chat. Amazing. All right, that's good. I guess like you also get access to Dante. Is a captain? No, he's probably a chapter master, I imagine. Character, yeah, he's a chapter master. Sad. And Gabriel Seth died. You can play Mephiston. Good stuff. All right. Well, we'll definitely take a peek at that. It's weird that the Blood Angels captains would not be exclusive alongside the regular captains, because they did that in other instances. But I guess it's less broken for you to have 6 captains than it is for you to have, for example, 6 Repulsor Executioners like we did for a really long time. That's cool, though. All right. So, Blood Angels captain, super sick. He's got Reach for the Warrior. He's good at punching. Mephiston, Commander Dante, Lamarties, and a combi weapon lieutenant. We've got an Assault Intercessor squad to hang out with that Blood Angels captain, as we talked about. An Impulsor as well to carry them to the fight. We've got 5 Assault Jump Pack Intercessor guys. It is cool. It does make sense to see these dudes in Blood Angels. They get sort of optional access to Advance and Charge, and then also the +2 strength and +1 attack is huge for that unit. That pushes them from the realm of probably killing whatever they charge to almost certainly kill basically any light infantry unit and a lot of medium infantry too. So that super tracks that you would rock these guys in Blood Angels. It is a little bit more awkward in Gladius Task Force, I think, but still understandable. We then have a Death Company unit for Lamarties to hop into, a big infiltrator squad, triple Repulsor Executioner, 15 captains. Is it more on theme to play Repulsor Executioners or to play just a bunch of Impulsors? Let me know. Let me know down in the comments, chat. Because I feel like when I played the original captains list, that was like 9 captains or whatever, and it had a Repulsor Executioner, or it had a Land Raider Redeemer. People got mad they had a Land Raider. But I was like, I don't know. I feel like it makes sense. Or do we just go literally all captains and call it a day? I think that there are enough captains that you could fill basically the entirety of the army with captains. Yeah, you get the Terminators, and you get we could fill with the Phobos guys. Maybe we'll give it a go with literally all captains, and then we'll pair it back depending on how possible it is to actually win. If you go 3 Terminators, and 3 Gravy guys, or 3 Phobie guys, then that is basically the entire army, and you can you then take the enhancements and stuff, and I think that's basically all your things. I think you play this in Liberator to get the attack bonus. That is a list, though. That's a hell of a list right there. The sustained hits through is the Warlord. I think you make the Warlord like 1 jump infantry, like 1 jump guy in case you just need to hide him. Because the jump guys are actually the least exciting. They kind of suck. We got an Infiltrator squad in here. We have a Sanguinary Guard squad to hang out with Dante, plus a Scout unit, double Vindicators, a Calidus, and a Culexus Assassin. And that's what's going on. That's what we got cooking. I don't know. It seems pretty good. I think it definitely feels like a natural evolution of the previous Sons of Sanguinius. I don't know if I have too much else to talk about that with. Definitely looks like a list for sure. Can confirm. Certainly a list. I guess it's good that we have Vindicators alongside all the melee as well. I think there is an impetus for a lot of players to play literally nothing but melee attacks in Blood Angels, but it's important to have the backline shooting too. Good stuff. Congratulations, Blood Angels. Anthony Vanilla taking it down with Blood Angels. 6-1. Did lose round 1? What did we lose round 1 to? Oh, Alex, the eventual winner of the event. I talked about his list, by the way, on my video this morning, so you can go check that out if you want to hear about some talk of Genestealer cults. Played a match against Thousand Suns over the weekend as Tau. Super Anakin, I'm 2 weak energy, killed 1 unit of rubrics, and the attached character turn 1. Felt like his army couldn't recover. What Tau detachment you're playing? That's really interesting. So we watched that matchup so extensively over the... we watched that play out like 4 times. For whatever reason. Over the Onslaught, or the Tampa Open. And... Monka and Kauyon both basically got dumpstered by Thousand Suns. Retaliation Cadre felt very, very advantaged, though. At least Jack Harpster's did. Jack Harpster's like only oops all battle suits list. Basically just had the diversity of attacks to be able to like hold enough in the back to threaten Magnus late game and clear out all the stuff that presented itself. Whereas Magnus, all Magnus had to do in most of the other matchups was clear out like a lot of the big guns and like the devastating attacks and stuff. And once he did that, he could just expose himself. And then like one big shot would go through every turn. He'd blanket, get a bunch of hit rerolls, and take like 3 damage from an entire shooting phase. And there was very little that could punch through him at that point. But as soon as there was like a Sunforge team sitting in the back just waiting for him to expose himself, then everything went south pretty quickly. I'm gonna turn my music down a little bit here, chat. It looks like it is a little loud. I hope it's not too bad. I think Montka. Crisis missiles good, scattered 6, auto advance 6, dumped into a unit of rubrics. Is that not a trade down though? I guess like the question is like, was he able to kill the crisis unit in response? Because that feels like a... I guess it's a side grade, right? Crisis teams with a character like 220-ish. So they're around the same cost as a rubric unit. Obviously, like, you losing it before it's able to act sucks, though. So I can see that would be maybe like a... There could be a carry-on effect, but it is... I guess it's not too surprising that you'd be able to get access to that. It feels like there could have been like an aggressive deployment happening, but also that unit moves like 30 inches, so maybe it's just tough. They weren't in range. I'd have to see the game state. Feels like maybe we could have deployed them in a better place. I know Mike Muzeni's running a Rhino, which I think definitely helps those situations. Then you can't lose the, like, if you have an aggressively placed unit, you can't lose it in one shot. Sunforges are amazing, 100%, for sure. All right, chat. Where should we be off to next? The Raccoon Rumble is the biggest event of the weekend. I think it's worth having a quick peek at what we get X and 1 in that event. There we are. Oh yeah, Pascal Haberstro, undefeated with Tyranids. Did have a draw on the record though, so he didn't make the cut for the other for the video yesterday. But it's definitely worth talking about. And with Crusher Stampede, No less. Let's go with a Swarm Lord. Okay, well, we're off for some spice already. 6 Meltas for 150. What's even better is the extra 3 Meltas you get off a character, or just +1 wound off of Bar Strike too. Is it weird that Commander Farsight he's like, he sees a really long way, but also he brought a sword to the fight. Is that weird? He feels like the very opposite. And also his own abilities only trigger off being right next to his opponent. So I feel like maybe he's been misnamed. Poor guy. His parents didn't like him very much. Like, you know what? You're going to see far and go far in life. He's like, can I go far to punch people? And they're like, no. You'll see them coming a mile away so that you can be prepared with your cool, like, anime sword. You should be short sight, yeah. We've got the Swarm Lord in this list. We've also got a Hormagaunt unit, 10 Hormagaunts in there. Interesting to see. I think Hormagaunts have basically taken over as the utility Gaunt option du jour for Tyranids. The high base movement, they've advanced in charge, so they act both as a good utility unit, but also as a disruptive piece because they can threaten taking objectives from really far away. Because they can move so quickly and then charge afterwards, they can put a lot of OC on objectives that are otherwise screened against stuff like gargoyles, which can't really charge to do that. So there is even a benefit that they have over gargoyles, although their movement is slower. But basically all of the successful Tyranid lists now are running some number of Hormagaunts. We've got double Exocrine, double Lictor, 1 Biobore for utility, double Maleceptor, 1 Psychophage to give them a Feel No Pain, a unit of Ravagers, so we have some additional utility as well, plus a Trigon. Love the Trigon in Crusher Stampede. Probably the best place for it, plus triple Terrain effects. So, yeah, rocking 2 Exocrines, 2 Maleceptors, 1 Psychophage, 3 Tyrannifexes on the ground, plus a Trigon in reserve. That is a butt ton of monsters standing in the way. I wonder if there is a consideration for the 3rd Tyrannifex to run Acid. The Acid's so weird for Tyrannifexes because it's not cover ignoring, so it actually ends up being kind of a weird Overwatch, because a lot of times you can't move to a position where your opponent has control over where you can Overwatch. So your opponent can end their movement in a position where they get cover, and it has the potential to get blanked against a lot of medium infantry, which is what you want to be killing with it. So plus I think like Tyranids tend to have more of a problem cracking armor than they do killing those kind of models. But the acid spray on the 3rd Tyrannifex does definitely feel like it's an interesting option, just to force your opponent to play differently around it. But also, I don't know how many CP we have like kicking around. I guess probably a lot. The stratagems in that detachment are not that great. Cool to see Crusher Stampede doing well. I do wonder if there's something to it there as a successful detachment, because it definitely seems like it's having some success. Although Invasion Fleet, I think, is a little bit more. Weird that Tyranids don't bring more Horror Spexes. They're only 125. Yeah, so the weird thing is that we can take a peek at the Horror Specs real quick. It suffers the problem that all of the sort of Tyranid monster data sheets do. So part of the issue is that a lot of the stuff takes up physical real estate. Like, you run into an issue, especially with a list like this that's running like 9 or 10 monsters, where there's no room to place them. They are only move 8 and they don't go through walls. So you oftentimes have to deploy them very aggressively and play them very aggressively to give them an opportunity to get into melee. And even if you do, your opponent can kill them relatively easily. They're not the hardest thing in the world to kill. They obviously won't go down to just, they won't just fall over to a breeze, but they're T11 with 14 wounds. But dedicated anti-tank will kill them. So you're sort of like placing them in the front and presenting your opponent your less hardy defensive profile, where you could be occupying that space with a Tyrannifex, and the Tyrannifex has much more of a chance of just blanking that damage by simply not suffering it. The T12 The T11 to T12 cutoff point and the 2+ to 3+ save, plus the ablative plating, plus the extra wounds, makes the Tyrann effects like dramatically harder to kill. So the area where this Haruspex wants to stand in order to get in melee is usually taken up by a different unit that's just like being played in a totally different capacity. The other thing that they like have a million attacks, but the other thing too is that their attacks are kind of whatever, right? They are very susceptible to Armor of Contempt because they go down to AP1 on their big swings, and they don't have any like baked-in access to rerolls. You have to source that somewhere. So I believe that Crusher Stampede can give them rerolls, but even then they're like super inconsistent with how much damage they do. Like a bunch of really mediocre attacks into any target's like kind of awkward. Even assimilation swarms not running Haruspex? Yeah. I think the real issue is the movement, in my opinion. Like, their movement's so low that they don't even act in a very good, like, counterpunch capacity. Because an 8-inch movement is, like, almost enough. In most situations, like, is not even enough. If on a normal terrain layout, right, you can imagine that there's, like, a Tyrann effects and some ruins and stuff. The Haruspex, unless it's just nut to butt with the Tyrann effects, which is usually where you want either Maleceptors or the Psychophage, so you run into some movement problems. But even if the Haruspex is basically just like standing on the Tyrann effects, it doesn't, like an 8-inch movement, if it has to cut any corners at all, basically just gets to where the Tyrann effects was. So if your opponent had if your opponent hadn't like engaged in melee, there's a pretty reasonable chance that the Haruspex isn't even in range to come hit them if they move out to shoot the Tyrann effects. You know what I mean? What you'd like to do is like put a situation where the Tyrann effects can set an objective, and if your opponent engages it, the Haruspex can kill whatever engaged it. But they're out of range to do that because they're too slow. It's really a speed issue. If they could, I guess like you could pay the CP to bust through walls. And that helps a little bit in this detachment. But then again, like, why are we doing that on a Haruspex when we could be doing it on any other monster? Plus, then you're sort of, like, required to use it on the Haruspex rather than anyone else? I don't know. I think it's a combination of the melee attacks being kind of mediocre. They're sort of a jack of all trades, almost. Their defensive stats aren't the best in the faction, their movement is slow, and their melee attacks aren't the best in the faction either. The one interesting thing that we don't see in here is Old One-Eye. But obviously, he increased in points value. I think that you would probably take Old One-Eye before you took a Haruspex in most situations, right? Because he's like, I don't want to say he's a similar level of survivability. He's harder to shoot at because he's smaller. He has less wounds, but a 5+ field no pain. So he's actually got like basically the same wounds and a lower toughness, but a better save. So realistically, he's like almost as hard to kill as a Haruspex. He's not that much more expensive, but his melee attacks are much more reliable. And that's just exciting. Haruspex is the secret rule of making your opponent go how many attacks? Yeah. You're like 14? And you're like, don't worry, they're only AP1. And they're like, oh, Armor of Contempt. And you're like, yeah. See, you're going to take no damage. You'll be fine. I'm going to kill one Space Marine with this attack. Let's go. One time, I got a Chaplain with his tongue, though. And that made me a happy camper. I think one of the first games of 10th edition I played. Because Haruspexes were like the only actual high-strength characteristic in Tyranids. And he ran up next to a Hive Tyrant, got the advance and shoot, took a ranged attack, snagged a Chaplain right out of the unit, and ate him. Nom nom. Yeah, it was pretty rad. I liked it. Always lead with the 4, so the 14 seems more insane. Yeah. Anyway, chat. Good on Crusher Stampede. Maybe Harspexes are the truth. Maybe we'll play some Harspexes at some point. I actually have not played enough Crusher Stampede. I'm kind of interested because it is doing well these days. And I guess like you want to find armies that can deal with these like huge swarms. Let me tell you, Tyranids can do it pretty well. And a Tyranid army composed of nothing but huge monsters with a million attacks definitely helps. That's an interesting Eldar in top 5, but I believe that's a top cut result. So he was locked into 6th place there. Yeah, actually lost to that Crusher Stampede list. That's interesting. We can talk about that real quick. Leaf Vesterman. Rocking some Eldar. Get so many things with the tongue, yeah. The tongue is like, I love the tongue attack because it's such a throwaway, right? Like this attack is like, it's not, that's for sure not included in their points value. It's just included because it's cool. And in like it has a 1% chance to do anything, right? You have to hit like a 3 or a 4, and then probably hit like a 4 or a 5, and then they fail a 4+, and then you have to roll a 4+, like for it to accomplish anything. But once you get through the like great filter of statistical probabilities to get the one amazing hit through, it's so incredible. Like it transforms the whole game the 1% of the time where it does anything. Where you're just like, I guess I'll make this attack. You kill like a 120-point character, and your opponent's just like, excuse me? What just happened? That's a las cannon? You're like, yeah, I don't know, man. D6+1, let's go. I love like random attacks like that. It's also something that's really like easy to forget about, but it has the potential to be hugely transformative. It's like back in, I don't even know what Venom Throws do anymore. Back in 8th edition, Venom Throws had a 6-inch range ranged attack, which was just their melee profile, but as a ranged attack. And everyone forgot that they had it, but it was like basically 2+ poison. So you would just like, and sometimes you could give them like hit bonuses and hit rerolls. So you could like wander over and then just like tickle like a 5-man utility squad to death, and your opponent's like, excuse me, I didn't know they did that. You know, it's like that kind of attack. And it's awesome. It rules. I love stuff like that. All right, this list, we're rocking Autarch Wheeleaper with the Phoenix Gem, hooked on Phoenix. We have Death Jester with Fate's Messenger plus Fuegan, triple Fire Prism, double Howling Banshees. Double Howling Banshees. That's so interesting. Pretty good as a kind of a disruptive unit to run onto objectives and clear them off. That's something that the Fire Prisms and the guns can't really do by themselves, but the Banshees definitely can turn that on. We've got a Skyweaver unit, 1 unit of Striking Scorpions, a D-Cannon support weapon platform, 2 units of Swooping Hawks, a Void Weaver, triple Warp Spiders as well. So tons of utility. Double Swooping Hawks, Striking Scorpions, double Howling Banshees. This is like a ton of 5-man Aspect Warrior squads. The Skyweavers are pretty useful as well because they're extremely fast and can damage some big heavy vehicles with their stuff. And then the Void Weaver is also a nice little ranged attacker in there. He's kind of like he's like a Fire Prism, honorary Fire Prism, I guess. The Prismatic Cannon is like a little tiny baby Fire Prism shot. There is no Avatar of Cain in this list, chat. I just want to point out. So there's not really like a big anchor that it revolves around, which is normally what the Avatar does. I don't know if I personally could play Eldar without an Avatar. Not because I think it's a crutch, but more because it's awesome and I love it. There's also no Farseer. We just left him at home. Fuck it. Who needs 6s on our Fate Dice pool? Well, this is like actually wild. No Farseer, so Fuegan's just hoping for like natural 6s. That also means we have very little way to like utilize our low Fate Dice rolls. But if you only have the 6 Fate Dice to begin with, because you don't have no additional Fate generation, it doesn't really matter that much. You're just hoping for a couple 6s, then calling it a day, I think. Never had the Prismatic Cannon do anything? Yeah, but it's like 100 points, right? Yeah, it's all right. So we're sort of backlining with the fire prisms, and we can use the fire and fade wombo combo if we need to. And then basically just skirmishing the middle of the table with like a million utility units. So I think we're putting a lot of pressure on our fire prisms to perform. You can overwhelm a lot of situations by just like hopping a bunch of warp spiders on them or something, but if the fire prisms poop the bed, then things could go very south for this army, because there's very little behind that shooting, right? Everything else is just a T3 infantry. Run one to Dracarys a few times. Yeah, I think the oh, excuse me, chat. Like I mentioned before, I'm gonna mute myself real quick here to give a cough. Oh, we got that good forest fire energy. I think that the big benefit that they have is the battle host rerolls. That's kind of the missing point there. If you're playing them outside of battle host, I definitely feel like they probably struggle. But given that they're a low volume, like high impact weapon, the floating rerolls makes them so much more reliable. You're basically doubling their attack volume, right? Just based off that one ability, because normally you're firing 2 shots, you probably hit 1, and you have a 50-50 chance to wound. But if you're rerolling on each one of those instances, you almost certainly hit 2, right? You hit like 1.5, and then you almost certainly wound with one of them out of the 2. So you're basically like doubling your odds to get a hit through. Which is, I think that's sort of where the big difference is. Yeah, I mean, the question is, like, whether you go through in-roll saves or whatever. And obviously, like, you can just get diced out, but having played Wraith Lords, which have basically the same profile, right? They have 2 Bright Lances, but they hit on 4s. The chances that those things connect, even with -1 to hit, is pretty high. And the Void Weaver with +1 to hit and better movement is looking pretty good. Yeah, I think I like these things. It's funny because I think a lot of other factions these would be staples, but Eldar has so many of these like little light vehicle with a big gun profile. You could take this, or you could take Vipers, or you take Warwalkers, or you could take more Skyweavers, or you could take more utility. You could take Aspect Warriors to do that too. It's so funny because it's like you could just get the same unit a million different ways, which is why you don't see them as much. Hunt heavy destroyers with them. Yeah, just one taps them right through the 4 winds. That's funny. Get wrecked, heavy destroyers. A little Black Templars action going on here. Thomas Butelman. Rocking a Black Templars Gladius. We've given up the Righteous Crusaders. It's done. It's over. The dream is dead. Void Weavers also have smoke. Do they have? That's like the disruption launchers or whatever. But do they have? I guess they don't have stealth baked in like Venoms do. So smoke is actually, it's not good, but it's definitely something. You're almost never using that. I guess you could smoke and lightning fast reactions in the same turn. They're in the same phase. There you go. We have access to 2 -1 to hit effects. Let's go. 8-arm slapper. Anyone have tips for Adeptus Mechanicus going first GT this coming weekend playing Rad? How many tracks do you have? I guess it's probably less important in Rad Zone Core than it is in Skutari Hunter cohort. But we just saw a list actually go undefeated this weekend. I talked about it in my video this morning. Basically, basically rocking like 40-ish infantry plus a Catapult Breacher unit and a bunch of like backline vehicles, essentially. Pretty well rounded. A couple of infiltrators as well and Cerberus Raiders to gum up the midboard. All right, let's talk about this Gladius Task Force over here. So we have Chaplain Grimaldus with the 1 Primaris Crusader squad. Now, I talked about these guys at length in a previous video. The fact that Grimaldus can benefit the unit, basically gets to double dip on his relics because he doesn't have to choose Advance and Charge because he can do it with, or +1 AP, because you can do both of those with Assault Doctrine. Means that he can lock in his other effects and or even stack additional AP bonuses to get these guys to AP 3 in addition, or keep their field up in, obviously, in addition to being able to advance and charge. That's huge. This unit does friggin' such ludicrous damage. We have 2 Jump Pack Assault Intercessor units, 3 Gladiator Reapers, a pair of Predator Destructors, a Scout Squad, and triple Vindicators. So just an enormous number of hulls. There's a big hull spam energy over here. Interesting that we're rocking triple Reaper. I think that's definitely like the Vindicators. We sort of have like big heavy stuff covered, right? Between those guys and the ability to just plow this fucking 25-man unit into it and like blow them up. But that seems like something. Seems like maybe it is a little bit of a pivot to try to answer these high model count armies, right? Because Gladiator Reapers get those sustained hits too. You can push devastating wounds through like higher save characteristics. They just have a million attacks to clear out infantry as well. So I think we are probably seeing people. I guess the other benefit that they have is that they get a multi-multi too, so they're not entirely dead shooting at hard targets. Not to mention the fact that the Onslaught Gatling Cannon is probably good for 2 or 3 mortal wounds every time it shoots because it's twin linked. So they can ping down big stuff, but for the most part they're there to just like absolutely vaporize infantry. And the fact that we're rocking 3 of them in place of Lancers or of more heavier shooting, I think, kind of points to the fact that we are looking to answer those kind of high model count armies. I wonder what Thomas lost to in the final round. Did he not make top cut? Oh, he did make top cut. He lost to Manuel Wayand, the Renegade Raiders that we talked about this morning. Interesting. That's curious, I guess, because also it's a that's kind of a voluminous infantry list as well. It's rocking a lot of little tiny units of guys, double Legionnaire, Chosen, double Obliterator, double Raptor, double Warp Talon. So it's like a lot of little tiny squads, but I guess it's very good at scoring. It probably outscored the Black Templars pretty heavily. Kevin Zollinger plays that list. Curious. Yeah, I know we've seen the Gladius Task Force Primaris Crusaders before, and backing up with shooting just makes sense. I'm just interested that we're rocking Reapers, but I think it makes sense if we're hoping to clear out these big infantry breaks that we're worried about seeing. All right, there's one more. Grisha Gevert went undefeated with Space Marine, or not undefeated. Did lose one game, dropped one game with Space Marines. Oh, this is a Vanguard Spearhead. We've talked about non-Vanguard Spearhead Ultramarines quite a bit. I guess we can take a peek at this one. It's running Marnius Calgar, Rabuta Gilliman, Ariel Ventress, the Blade Driven Deep Apothecary Biologus for forward operation. Jump Pack Captain with Ghost Weave Cloak. That's cute. I actually really like that. So he has Lone Operative and Stealth, and he just can run around by himself. That's actually super cool. We have not seen that guy. I like that. That's a really interesting inclusion. We also have a combi weapon lieutenant with Shadow War veteran, so he's got the CP tax. An assault intercessor squad. I don't think we attach them because then the lone operative doesn't work. So we just have the captain running around by himself. Not to mention the fact that he's not the most exciting attachment for these guys anyway. +1 strength is like kind of whatever. We have a Centurion Devastator squad, Company Hero squad, Eradicator squad. So for Marnius Calgar, for Uriel Ventress to buff into, Company Heroes for Marnius Uriel Ventress to hang out with, an Infiltrator squad, Scout squad, and 1 Vindicator for shooting. Normal stuff for the most part. I like that little Ghost Weave Cloak captain though. That guy's cute. Want to start an admin list, but they're not that, you're not that wealthy. Yeah, that is the downside of Adeptus Mechanicus. It doesn't help that like the units that are good in Adeptus Mechanicus. Oh, here's Kevin Zollinger. What did he play? Did he play the same list? Yep. All right. Fair enough. Understood. The exact same Black Templars list over here. It is unfortunate for Adeptus Mechanicus that a lot of the units that are good in the faction that are like really powerful right now are the really high like volume ones. You know, things like Taraxi and Sicarians that are just like per point are just like insanely expensive. It was like, oh, you gotta get some vehicles, and you're like, okay, I guess I'll buy some Dune Riders. Like you should get those anyway, but it's also just the fact that you're spamming like the most expensive infantry in 40k. It just gets a little bit silly. All right, chats. What else do we want to take a peek at? Anybody have any requests for some factions to hop into here, or some events that we want to take a deeper dive into? Let me know. I'll take some looks at some of the lists that we didn't talk about. The undefeated list that we didn't talk about. There's Chaos Demons. So, Niklas Fritzchen over here went undefeated with at Raccoon Rumble. I talked about that in my video this morning. His result was insane. It's just an absolutely ludicrous domination of the scores. Ragnarok Autumn was a smaller event. I think it was only 20 players, but Franco McDonald went X1 with Chaos Demons. It did come in first off tiebreakers, but because the event was smaller, there was a chance that you would end up placing first at that even with a loss on your record. He was running Bellicor, a Grid, Endless Ed, old Ed over here. A Soul Stealer, Keeper of Secrets, plus Shalaxi Hellbane. Interesting, Shalaxi Hellbane seeing so much play. You wouldn't have thought that only a 25-point discount on that model would make it playable, but the amount of damage they've done, they can do is kind of insane. That's definitely. I now have like I'm sort of stacking up a series of game results where I lose almost entirely, or at least come close to losing. Almost entirely because my Bloodthirster rolls a bunch of ones to hit or wound. And at least Shalaxi Hellbane can reroll those into most targets, so I think I understand it. We're running double Plague Bearers, triple Fiends. Whoa! Okay. Alright, so we have like a trillion 2 damage melee attacks. They also get the +1 AP from being near a Keeper of Secrets as well. Assuming that they're going in alongside them, so they have the potential to do a lot of damage. Plus double Screamers. It's interesting. Also, Screamers are seeing a lot more play now these days too. I think I like the idea of Screamers. It's always awkward because it feels like there's always 5 points riding somewhere, and you could just have Fleshhounds instead, which are 5 points less. But the Screamers I think are definitely better as utility unit. They have a higher base movement. They have some additional abilities as well. They're physically smaller, so they're easier to hide, although that does mean that they're worse at screening. They also have round bases, which I think they do, anyway. Somebody can correct me on that. Do Screamers have round bases? Which does make it so that they don't have to rotate. Unfortunately, Fleshhounds have to pay to rotate, although it's not that much now. I think they're on flying stands, right? Oh! So cool. What a cool-ass model, chat. Yeah, they're on little round flying stand bases. Look at these little guys. I love them. Whee! I kind of wish Chaos Demons, like, leaned more into this style, because they look so fucking weird, and I love it. It's so cool. Curious if the World Championships Warhammer for Acklons makes it to the data slate. In the past, I mean, we don't have too much to look at because we've only had one World Championship so far. But in the past, the World Championships basically just use the future data slate change. Although the downside is that we're probably not going to see that change be made official for another couple months because the next rules update's probably in January. So I think they will adopt upcoming changes to make the field more fair, but I doubt that we'll see it on a wider capacity for a bit. Although I imagine that a lot of independent events will just use those updates anyway because that is it's almost the explicit intention of the game designers. Zinj Demons are the best looking? Slaanesh second. Interesting. I actually, maybe this is controversial. I don't know. I actually really don't like Keepers of Secrets. I don't know if there is. I think I might just not like Slaanesh, like the Slaanesh-y like art style. Maybe you could make them maybe if they were doing something, I would like it more. They're just so static and like boring. I don't like that they look like just a person, right? I don't know. I really just don't like them very much. Here's what I was thinking of, chat. I was actually at my local game store and I was thinking of buying more Greater Demons because I'm an addict, I think. And let me know what you think about this. I want to get the... Where the fuck are they? Oh, it's Age of Sigmar. I want to get the Skaven Vermin Lords and turn them into Keepers of Secrets. There's 2, I think, sculpts for them right now. Yeah. So there's this one, and then there's like a character one, this guy. And it's kind of the same vibe, right, as like a Keeper of Secrets. These are all one kit, right? Yeah. Like the big knife dude, especially. These are basically the same vibe, but their pose is like way more dynamic. And also, at least the demon army that I have, which is like all fucking big muscly idiots, I think that they fit the like the look a little bit more. I assume that they're also on the same base. Where are Keeper of Secrets at? I literally was just looking at the model and then I lost it. And then I really navigated away. Oh, cool. It's broken. I love that for me. Oh, there it goes. Is the Keeper on an oval? Or is the Keeper on a circle? Oh, it's on a circle. Okay, so you'd have to replace the base, I guess. Not the end of the world. Are these basically rat demons? Yeah. I think that the horned rat was codified in the Age of Sigmar lore to be the 5th Chaos God. There's like art of him with all the other Chaos Gods now. So I think that they are literally just greater demons of the horned rat. Feels like a little bit of overlap with Nurgle. I don't know. But it is what it is. I don't know what the horned rat would have, would the domain of the horned rat would be. That you wouldn't also get from the big bug guy, but you know, it is what it is. But then there's also this guy, right? This model's fucking awesome, by the way. Look at this fucking guy. And this dude, you take the stick away, or you just give it a big old fucking spearhead, And you maybe give him some extra arms or something, like maybe in the back over here, because Shalaxi Hellbane's got 4 arms. And you make him into a Shalaxi. Right? Right, chat? I think he's smaller, which is problematic, but maybe you could make his, like, build up his base or something. Because he's on the big... He's on the 130 mil round. Which is, I think, also what the Keeper's on. Oh, his base is bigger, actually. Oh, so he's actually probably around the same size. He's definitely dwarfed by his base, but his base is literally 30% smaller. So he's actually probably pretty close. As long as you made the horizontal size similar, because all the Keepers of Secrets have those like outstretched arms on the sides. My Demon Army is basically the cast of Gears of War. It fucking is, chat. Did y'all watch that Angry Joe? That Angry Joe show? My Demon Armies. Everyone's just fucking... We're here to fight the... What were the bad guys? The Locust. We're here to fight the Locust. And the yellow guys if they came in on Gears of War 3. Whatever those guys were called. There's an update to GSE, Cult Ambush, Sororitas, Vanilla, Space Marines, and Deathwatch coming in December. Is that confirmed? I know that there's a Deathwatch update coming in December. I would be surprised if all the other stuff changed at the same time. Do most people I see have an extra set of Lobster Claw arms? Listen. I have lots of sets of Lobster Claw arms, but that's just because I'm a Tyranid player. And those live in a box. Where did they say that Miracle Dice are getting changed, chat? I'm genuinely curious, because that's the first I've heard of it. I don't get lore or rumors and leaks and stuff, so I don't know all that stuff. But yeah, that's what I was thinking of. I think we might add some Slaanesh, some rat Slaanesh into our army. That might be what ends up happening. I don't know, because I don't really like the Keeper Secrets model. It's also, I don't know, it's kind of weird looking for what it does, right? Because like the Keeper of Secrets conceptually on the table is like very graceful, which is why they're so hard to kill, because they're always dodging and stuff. But this model is doing nothing. This model's just standing there. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, chance. GW posted about it? Oh, okay. Well, I didn't see that. Good to know. All right. Somebody asking about Votann when we were talking about stuff. There was some Votann. If we hop back on over to Raccoon Rumble. Votann were X1 over there. Mathieu Clerc. X and 1 with Leagues of Votann. Rockin' double Einhir Champion, one with a Praising Glare. A Call with Grim Demeanor. One Hearthkin Warrior unit. Double Sagittors. Chthonian Berserk unit. One big brick of Einhir Hearthguard. So we got the... yeah, one of 10, 2 of 5. Do we have 2 land fortresses? We do. So we've got 2 Sagittars that can jump in the Chthonian Berserks and split the Hearthkin in 2. And then we can... I'm going to zoom out a little bit here. And then we have the Einhir Hearthguard unit that can Rapid Ingress, right? Is like waiting in the wings, plus the 2 Einhir Hearthguard units inside the Hekaton Land Fortress, plus Hernkin Jaegers, double Hernkin Pioneers. I think I've played against this list. Basically, almost exactly. It's kind of a classic. You basically, like, you have enough forward operation that you can kind of clear the space in the middle, and you sort of take the center of the table with the 2 Sagittars, clear out room for them with the Hernkin Pioneers and the Jaegers. Then you follow that up with the 2 land fortresses, and the land fortresses is so much inside them and standing behind them that there's not really a way to profitably engage into them, right? 225 points is pretty good for their profile already. It's hard to kill them efficiently, and then even if you do, they just rapid ingress 10 Hearthguard behind them, and they just end your entire like face. Plus, they're also disembarking Hearthguard with potential champions as well. So pretty classic stuff, pretty normal stuff. I do like the big Hearthguard unit too. That's another kind of a little bit of an answer to the big any big infantry bricks, because each of them get the grenade launcher. You can give them sustained hits, and then with +1 to hit and wound, they're just so reliable that they will average like 90 wounds on whatever they shoot at, if they're shooting at lower toughness infantry and stuff. So even big units of guys will just drop to these dudes instantly. The last 40K post on Warhammer Community. Oh, they said it in the October article? Well, that's embarrassing for me. Our next update later this year. Okay. You think that's going to come out in December, chat? You think that's going to come out on time? I'll cross my fingers. That feels like a January thing, but yeah, we'll see. They did specifically mention December for the Deathwatch update for sure. I actually wouldn't be shocked if they did like sort of an out of sequence update for Deathwatch potentially, as kind of alongside a Agents of the Imperium kind of retool, because they did the bug fixing change, but they haven't done any sort of balance hits for Agents of the Imperium. I almost wonder if that would come in out sort of out of sequence, but they do say this year, so maybe we'll get all that stuff on December. That'd be cool. I'd love that. Still don't think GW has the courage to do the hard change for Codex compliant Marine detachments, like to make them exclusive to Codex compliant chapters. Yeah, I think it's so tough because, like, I don't know. It depends on how 40K is like so it's like there's so much of like a role-playing sort of identity still in 40K that I think that it's a tough sell to be like, hey guys, Space Wolves can't play like the assault detachment anymore. And you're like, but that, like, Space Wolves don't have a first company anymore. And you're like, what? But they do. It's part of their chapter composition. And they're like, no, you can't take the first company detachment. You're done. I think that's probably a very hard sell for Games Workshop because of like the canonicity of those chapters having access to those units. But I do think at the very least that it should be pointed differently for sure. I don't think it's fair that a Liberator Assault Force pays the same cost for a Jump Pack Assault Intercessor unit that the fucking Firestorm does or whatever. Like, that's very silly. And I don't think we should get to the point that individual detachments have points values for units, but I do think that some factions should for sure, and especially in the case of Space Marines anyway. I think that there is a little bit of there's a little bit of a fear of things being like good. I think it's okay if detachments have units that are particularly synergistic with them, and I think that's actually a benefit of the detachment system. So I don't think that if a unit is good in a particular detachment, it should be nerfed on the within that detachment, which I know a couple of people have been calling for. But I do think that Codex compliant chapters should get the benefit of having cheaper units in exchange for having less options and less good characters and stuff. Watch them in fiscal year? Yeah. Just hedging their bets over there. Gladius Task Force should be universal Marine detachment. GW didn't help the situation by making non-Codex detachments mediocre. Yeah, I guess, I mean, that is true to some extent, right? We'll see what the Space Wolf supplement finally brings. Because, like, they just only have the Champions of Rust right now, which has turned into a very good detachment. But it does feel kind of, like, I don't know. It feels like it's at odds with Gladius Task Force, because a lot of times they do the same thing. I think the Blood Angels detachments are incredible. They do feel kind of samey. And Liberator Assault Force, Assault Group does feel like it's the best, but they, you know, I don't think it's hard to argue that those attachments, the toolboxes that those attachments bring aren't amazing, especially for the Blood Angels unit roster. I actually think that Gladius Task Force is probably the biggest, I think if anything, compliant chapters are the only ones that should get access to Gladius. Because Gladius, as we've talked about before, is probably just the best attachment in 40k. It's like, you could make an argument for, like, Battle Host, because its detachment ability is so silly. But Gladius is like, it has literally a stratagem for every situation. It's the deepest toolbox. It supports the widest variety of units. You can play almost anything inside the detachment. It's just, it's so well-rounded that it's, like, kind of criminal. And part of the issue is that every time you get a non-compliant detachment, or a non-compliant chapter...
Michael Allen.
Oh? TTS what? You cut out. No! Sorry about that. I don't know what happened there. I will read your comment. Thank you for the super chat, by the way. I don't know why the TTS died. Do you think with team tournaments getting so popular, it's harder for GW to balance the game more than it is already? No. No. Yeah, I don't think Games Workshop is balanced based on teams. I also think that teams using the WTC system, right? Teams basically balance themselves, right? Because there is, unlike singles events, and this is probably the biggest downside of singles events, there is no opportunity in teams for particular very strong factions to totally overrun the format. Because the team can only include one of them. That does mean that every team will include one of those armies if they're really good, but it also means that a broader spectrum of armies sees play sort of in the toolbox of a team. So I think the opposite happens, in fact. I don't think Games Workshop balances for teams, but I do think the team format naturally balances out how the game works, essentially. It removes the opportunity for teams to be super, super busted. So yeah, I think that if we're looking for more balanced 40k and more diverse 40k, teams are probably the future. I do think that there is a little bit of a downside where team compositions become kind of rote if the format's really broken, but we're not at that point yet. Most teams will have like an Eldar player and a Thousand Suns player and a Space Marine player, but like from there you have a lot of interesting options depending on what your players want and what kind of tools you're trying to include as well. But yeah, I think going back to the original discussion, I think that if I were to see any detachments get removed from non-compliant chapters, it would be Gladius Task Force. I think it's okay if, like, the Blood Angels Ironstorm army that we talked about in the video this morning is really cool, right? It's like, you get some unique vehicles to include with it. You can kind of synergize the Blood Angels unique units with how an Ironstorm plays. That's really interesting. The problem becomes when you play like Dark Angels and you just windmill slam a bunch of Dark Angels units into a Gladius Task Force, because Gladius Task Force is so well-rounded that it can buff literally anything, even if those are units that aren't normally accessible to Space Marines. I don't know if that's necessarily where things are going to go, but well, we'll see. Anyway, folks, let's see. Anybody else want to see some armies? Some people want to see OBS's Phalanx. Necrons. I don't know if there are any. I struggle to find individual detachments kind of in the scrum, essentially. I'll take a peek and see if we can find any really quick. I'm striking out here. Yeah, specific detachments is tough to find, chat, because they're not listed on the army entry. Ruben Tao, Death Guard Army at Red Bluff GT was pretty nice. Red Bluff. Was it you? Is that why? RBBR is Red Bluff Battle Reports, right? Oh, no. So Adam Dye, undefeated with Chaos Space Marines. I believe that this is a Chaos Cult, if I remember correctly. Let me switch my view here. It was a Chaos Cult. So we actually, Derek Apshe from 40k Dirtbags also went undefeated with the Chaos Cult. Adam Dye looks like he did it as well. Double Dark Commune, a Warpsmith, that's kind of cool. A Dark Apostle with Amulets. Cultists, 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 a Curse Cultist, a Curse Cultist, a Curse Cultist, Bikers, Bikers, a Lord of Skulls! Wait, this list rules, what? I was like, okay, I'm ready for the Traitor Guardsmen to come. There's also a 20-mana Cultist, that's cool. There's gonna be a bunch of Chaos Cultists and a bunch of Traitor Guardsmen, and then 3 Curse Cultist units. No! Fuck that. We're playing a fucking Lord of Skulls with a Warpsmith next to it. I actually love this. You basically have cut out the the middle of the damage curve, right? You're like, either we have trash or we have a fucking Titan. It's the two opposite ends of the spectrum. And this guy gives you solid shooting. It gives you long range shooting plus a melee anchor that the list doesn't typically have. So you can kind of like whittle people down and force them to commit into the Curse Cultist, and then just like close things out with the Lord of Skulls. This list rules. Oh. Hold up. Wait, there's 9 Nurglings? Can you do that? Don't they cap at 6? Am I crazy? Maybe I'm in the same person. Oh, they cap at 9. How come? How did I not know that yet? How did I miss that? You can take 9 in a unit? Holy shit. I know you can take 6. Sometimes we see 6 because they use 1-by-1 coherency. And so you can use them to screen out your opponent's front line. 9 just goes even harder. I guess the actual additional distance you get is not that long, though, right? Because you have to triangle the ends in that case if you have 9. So you only get 1 extra base of real estate, essentially. So you get, like... You get 1 base, so 1.5 inches plus 4 inches of coherency. So you get an extra 5.5 inches of coverage. For, I guess it's 35 points. Interesting. I guess I just never saw 9 Nurglings in a unit. But that lets you screen out a bunch of infiltrators, plus your opponent's scouts, so that you can run up your cultists themselves. The Accursed Cultists all have Dark Communes, I believe, right? Yeah, so we don't have... Scout on them. What a wild army. Is this Derek's list? I don't believe that it is. I would be surprised if Derek was playing a Lord of Skulls. I forget which event that he was at. Actually, we can look on their event list here. Oh, this is Nova. That's not what I want. Here he is. Flames of Autumn. Yeah, he was running much more normal Chaos Cult stuff. Traitor Guardsmen, bunch of Traitor Guardsmen, some Demonette Seekers. Yeah, this is like his standard list. This list is extremely different. That's crazy. That's so cool. What a fucking cool list, chat. A Lord of Skull is not in a World Leaders list, yeah. Indeed. Indeeders! As a Space Marine player, it's hard as fuck to find a team because everyone always has a Space Marine guy. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think it is an unfortunate part of team play. There's like an additional hurdle to get through, which is you kind of have to diversify the armies that you can play. Even if you're willing to borrow them from people, like a lot of the people who play teams sort of, you know, more commonly will have additional armies to play, but oftentimes it means you have to get kind of out of your comfort zone. It isn't, you know, not to mention the fact that you also need to know a team of people to play with you, but the Space Marine pick is like so valuable to you that oftentimes it goes to the person who's best at Space Marines, which does make things kind of tough. I'm glad we looked at this list, chat. This list is fucking insane. I absolutely love it. We've just absolutely deadly melee from the Accursed Cultists, a bunch of board control from the Cultist mobs, and then following it up with a fucking Lord of Skulls. Adam Dye, an absolute champion. What a cool list. We didn't even come here to look at this list. Hold up. Is this a Death Watch? What does this mean? All right. What happened at Bunker Down GT? Ruben, report back. What happened at this event? Because these lists are nuts. Also, why did Robert Desmond get 2 71-point wins in a row? That's so specific. All right, let's look at this Death Guard list. Thomas Sisapansky. Sisapansky? That's what I'm going to go with. Hopefully that's correct. Chaos Marine doing well. Let's hope they fit the Dread Dalliance attachment. I think that with Chaos Space Marines doing well, I don't think that they're going to be looking to fix any detachments. I think they're okay with where Chaos Space Marines are at right now. I'm glad they fixed the Bastion plate, though. Speaking of random random enhancements that were broken, that was one of them. We talked about that last weekend, actually. I learned Death Bastion plate had been repaired, or the Terminator armor, Lord had been repaired, so he's actually Chaos Lord now. So we're rocking a single Terminator Sorcerer, double Hellbrute, triple Destructor, triple Bloat Drone, triple Blight Hauler, 15 Nurgling. What the fuck? What a... It's the metagame of this event, just literally as many Nurglings as you can possibly take. Between the top 1 and top 2 lists, we have 30 Nurgling swarms. 30 of them. Plus a Beast of Nurgle, triple Wardog Brigands as well. Absolutely insane. So we have the Death Guard Sorcerer has no attachments, right? He's just chilling like a villain. You gotta bring him. He can deep strike. He can come in, pop his once per game, just vaporize something with his spell, or just get into melee, whatever. He's a utility guy. He can do some work. Who cares? The 2 Hellbrutes can shoot contagions onto people, so we're probably doing like -1 save, I imagine. I guess unless we have so many Nurglings that we could also be doing -1 to hit and just trying to stack the weapon skill modifiers. But then you can debuff people with the Hellbrutes by shooting at them. And then that turns on the Predator Destructors, plus we have some utility essentially from the Bloat Drones. They're super useful. The Mephitic Blight Haulers are essentially Bloat Drones with extra steps. They're anti-tank Bloat Drones. They're the same speed and defensive profile, but they don't fly. Instead, they don't really have very good melee, but they have a missile launcher and a multi-melta and +1 to wound against vehicles. So once you're debuffed by the Hellbrutes, then the Blight Haulers can sort of sink in and get a bunch of work done. We also have a similar thing from the Brigands. They get +1 AP if they're shooting the closest thing. So just a ton of shooting. Very, very straightforward. Basically, I think just like sitting the Nurglings in front of them to body block enemies from moving up and engaging the vehicle gun line. But otherwise, just using Death Guard debuffs to empower your guns. Pretty good. Oh yeah, Nurglings are amazing. Don't get me wrong, chat. Nurglings are amazing. I don't think I've seen that many Nurglings though. To be fair, this is a new level of Nurgling infestation. Nurglings with -1 weapon skill ruins melee matchups. Yeah, Yeah, if you can sit the Nurglings behind your front line and then get them to survive. Part of the downside is that they die so easily that like dedicated shooting will just kill the entire unit, and then you don't have to worry about the -1 to hit. But that also means it's shooting that's not going into the vehicles, so you're probably getting value out of it anyway. Nurglings are probably... I think Nurglings are 70 points, you get 6 times 4, 24 wounds. So you're paying 3 points per wound, essentially. So they're much more efficient than Gretchen. Gretchen are 12 wounds for... They're almost the same as Gretchen. So they're probably on a similar level of points per wound efficiency as Gretchen are. Played 18 Death Shroud, 2 units of 3 Nurglings into World Eaters. It was a massacre. Oh yeah, into World Eaters for sure. World Eaters players, you gotta bring the Forge Friends, guys. You gotta shoot the things before they charge. It's so important. That list is cool. Let's talk about this Death Watch list. Oh, it's fucking Space Marines. Okay. Well, Cameron, you've misreported your faction. That's unacceptable. Unacceptable! I defy you. Rude. That's a Blood Angels list. You can't see Death Watch. All right, chat. Anything else we want to take a peek at before we are running a little long here, but we can take a look at one more, I think. Will we ever see Imperial Agents do top numbers? Yes. We already have. I don't know where OBS and Phalanx is, chat. If you have an OBS and Phalanx list you want me to look at, I will look at it. But unfortunately, I can't. I'd have to sit down and look at every Necron list to find a good OBS one. And I don't think anyone wants to watch me do that. That seems like it would be very boring. We saw last week, I streamed Agents of the Imperium at the Onslaughts. We also saw them do pretty well at that other event that I streamed, Battle for Salvation. Oh my god. We watched them do pretty well. I think they went 4-2. I think they did drop 2 games. But still a pretty good result. And I think they do have what it takes if you are an extremely good player and you get some lucky matchups. They do have what it takes to win a GT. They're definitely GT level. I saw a lot of people who are calling for them to be like buffed. They're like, oh, make them good. And I think it would be the worst idea ever to make Agents of the Imperium very good, because obviously everyone gets access to Agents of the Imperium units. You don't want them to be too strong. And I think it's okay if they're an army that just generally isn't that great, because their goal is not to be great. It's to be a repository for other armies' allies. But I think it's interesting if they are a challenge that players can sort of embark on. You know what I mean? Grey Knights still not doing much? Yeah, I don't see too many Grey Knights. We can take a peek at our big events and see if we have any Grey Knights at the top here. They were 4-2 at Raccoon. Let's see if we can find any other ones. Oh boy. California Cup, they went 3-5. Brutal. Yeah, so 4-2 is what we got basically, but it does seem like the German community has some pretty strong Grey Knights players. These were their results. It's unfortunate for Grey Knights. It definitely feels like they fell off the deep end. But that's where we were just talking about team events a moment ago, and I think that's where the team event format kind of shines, because this is an army, right? Where Grey Knights are very, like, at best mediocre in singles events, but really they're kind of underperforming right now. And but in the team format, they're almost required, because they're not very good at winning mini games one-on-one, but what they are good at doing is like zeroing out hard matchups. So I think this is an example of a faction where the team event makes it easier to balance the game because it gives these armies who are good at very specific parts of the game, but not generally very powerful. It gives them a new leaves on life. It gives them a role to fill. Whereas in a singles event, if they're not good, you just won't play them, which is cool. All right, there. So, yeah, Christian Kreutz was running one single librarian, a grandmaster with sigil, a first to the fray nemesis dread knight, so he can teleport turn 1. Interesting. Plus an inescapable wrath nemesis dread knight. So this is a standard grandmaster, just the regular guy with sigil. You know what I'd like to see? Let's give that guy the stupid rights of war. Rights of battle. Why doesn't he have that? Why does he have a once per game rights of battle? Nemesis Grandmaster with Inescapable Wrath. A big, huge Brotherhood Terminator squad. There's no Drago in this list either. So this is actually kind of like going wild already. So big, huge Brotherhood Terminator squad, probably for the Grandmaster to hop into to give that sigil. Plus a Strike squad, an Interceptor squad, 3 Nemesis Dread Knights. So we're up to 5 Nemesis Dread Knights, 2 units of Marines, Strike Marines, and then 1 big Terminator squad that's just going to hop in and out, basically. I think we're just going to 3-inch deep strike it, mists it, 3-inch deep strike it, sigil it, 3-inch deep strike it, and just keep bouncing it until the late game when you actually need to get in and use their lethal hits. And then we're just sort of like using the Nemesis Dread Knights to skirmish until that happens. Grey Knights suffer from the same issue as War Horde Orks. It's extremely telegraphed what they're going to do. I guess so. It's interesting because I think like there are some matchups where like I don't think it's possible to profitably engage into Grey Knights. And we talked about this in Tactical Tuesday yesterday, where I think the Nemesis Dread Knight lists actually do the faction a disservice. Now, obviously, in this case, that's not really that's not really the case because this listed fairly well. But the Nemesis Dread Knight lists kind of transformed the faction into this like sort of mediocre gunline, right? A Nemesis Dread Knight is going to teleport in, it's going to shoot you, it's going to do a little bit of damage, and then it's going to hope that its 2+ save can survive, like keep it alive on the crackback. Most of the time, it might survive for a little bit, but Nemesis Dread Knights do go down very fast. They're very low toughness. You only have to get to like AP 2 ignore cover to bump up on their invulnerable save, so you don't really need to push super hard unless they're like spamming True Silver armor. And they don't have the big bricks that are super tough to deal with as much as a list focusing on Terminators. Now this list is a little different because it does have the 10-man Terminator squad, which I really like. And the reason I like these big bricks is because, especially with Sigil, right? It almost always takes multiple ranged attacks to deal with them. So you have to set yourself up to just hammer these things if you're actually going to get rid of them. And if you don't get rid of them, they're just going to slowly regenerate over the course of the game. If you set up, the Sigil's going to mess with you, right? It's not simply that it's just going to keep the Grandmaster, like a Nemesis Grandmaster, safe for a shooting phase. It is going to totally transform the game because you have this 500-point unit that you can't attack, you can't interact with. In addition, these are way more valuable to Mists of Deimos than the individual Nemesis Dread Knights. And some factions absolutely require melee attacks to deal with them. So if you don't have a way to either out-of-sequence move or to close deep strike in a position where you can attack this, specifically like with a melee attack, because otherwise they'll sigil away, then you just can't deal with this Terminator squad. And I think that's where Grey Knights really shine. So you can make it so that like you can kill them, but you know, in a lot of situations, in a lot of matchups, like the faction may simply not have the opportunity to do. Now, I think that there are a couple downsides. The first one is that CP tax effects are way more common right now, and those, you know, a lot of especially Mists of Deimos gets kind of hammered by that. You can do some funny stuff with it though, because it kind of requires that your CP tax starts on the table for it to work against Mists of Deimos. if you're relying on an uppy downy off a Calidus Assassin, it actually won't work against Mists because the Mists will trigger before the Calidus Assassin returns to the battlefield. So you can try to outposition it. So it's a good counter, but it's not a perfect counter. I do think that probably does transform the matchup quite a bit. There's also some stuff where Brotherhood Terminators just like don't do any damage to you, and then you don't even care that much. You're like, okay, you can reposition and maybe take an objective, but like you're never going to kill me, so it doesn't matter. Like a Catan Shard is not going to be like that worried about a Brotherhood Terminator squad hitting it. They're like, look at all these attacks we have. They're half damage and wound on 5s. Yeah. So unfortunately, Brotherhood like the Terminator bricks don't solve all the factions problems by themselves. You do kind of need the Nemesis Dread Knights, I guess, to sort of help that out, but I do think that they are the powerhouse of the faction. They're the really real power of Grey Knights Lies. Nemesis spam is Smooth Brain. Terminator gives that gives you skill expression. Yeah, I 100% agree. Yeah, I think the Nemesis spam. There are a lot of players who just want to like redeploy Nemesis Dread Knights onto people and shoot them, but the Nemesis Dread Knight like offensive profile is so weird and swingy, and there's a lot of situations where it just doesn't do anything. So it's like, hey, I can apply pressure to almost anywhere on the table, and your opponent's like, okay, cool. But also, I'm gonna shoot you back, and also, you're not gonna shoot me that hard. You're paying like 205 points, right? Like repulsor prices for a T8 model with 2 guns on it, and a melee attack with like, whatever, 5 attack to hit on 3s. So you could just like whiff. They're very fast though, which is good. Oh, the Grandmaster gives you ignore modifiers? Oh yeah, I wasn't thinking about that. Yeah, that's actually true. His is all modifiers, right? It's not keyed to hit rolls. It is in fact in an FAQ. Yeah, okay. That's sick. Yeah, I actually wasn't thinking about the Grandmaster. I to be perfectly honest, chat, I most often see them with Drago, so it wasn't even like in my brain that the Grandmaster was attached in. That's totally fair. Yeah, the Grandmaster unit will actually rip apart a Catan Shard. I wasn't thinking about that. That's a good call out. Thank you for correcting me. What are the best guns for Grey Knights? I mean, it is Dread Knights. Don't get me wrong, chat. It is a Nemesis Dread Knight. That is the best gun. It is unfortunate that their best gun is like strength 10, but that is their best gun. They can take like Razorbacks and Land Raiders, but they're so expensive and they don't really synergize with the rest of the army. Basically, like very few of their stratagems work on them. They can't teleport with the rest of the army. You never want to embark people into them. So like you're paying points for a big transport capacity you're never going to use. So there's a lot of downsides to Grey Knights vehicles. The Nemesis Dread Knights, I think the most efficient shooting platform they have, which is a part of the problem too, because in my humble opinion, it is not very efficient of a shooting platform. You're paying for its mobility, which is good, but I don't think is enough to like take an entire army of them. Prefer him in Paladins. Second best is probably the 10-man Paladin brick with Sigil. Interesting. The Paladins don't get lethals, right? But they do get they hit on 2s instead. The lethals feel so necessary though to hit T12 stuff. Do they have more attacks? No. They just hit on 2s. I guess they're tankier. And they have more special weapons. That's the other benefit. They have 1 million incinerators. Give Psy Cannons anti and AP2. Yeah, regular Psy Cannons are like just so fucking pathetic. I think that, like, if you wanted to get Grey Knights off of the Nemesis Dread Knight, like, the problem with the Nemesis Dread Knights is that it's the only thing in the faction that shoots a gun, right? With any capacity to do damage. The easiest way to get Grey Knight players off of Nemesis Dread Knights is just to give them another gun that's good. Like, the issue isn't that they're playing them because they're amazing. It's that they're playing them because they're the only option they have to actually kill an enemy model. Like, look at this fucking this profile chat. 8 -1, 2 damage. Cool. 3 shots. Sick, man. So a Purgation squad shoots 12 shots, right? Let's say it shoots at like a Space Marine infantry unit. It's meant to be like a medium infantry killer. So we shoot 12 shots at a Space Marine unit. We hit 8 of them. Already going great. We wound on 2s, so we wound, let's say 7, and then they save on 3s because they're in cover. So they take on average like 2 casualties. So your 120 point heavy weapon team kills 2 Space Marines on average. And if you shoot at anything that's like a higher toughness characteristic, you're just gonna do literally nothing. It's so bad. They fixed that with the heavy side cannon by giving it AP2 ignore cover, so it actually punched through that save characteristic very well, which is what they need to do with these guys. I don't know why Astral Limb doesn't give you ignore cover. It's wild. You used to take them for a hot minute when they could indirect fire their flamers, and then they got hit with a nerf, and they can't do that anymore for no reason. I think that this is the unit to look at if you want to make Grey Knights sort of move away from Nemesis Dread Knights. You need Purgation squads to be good, or something equivalent. Even Paladin squads with a bunch of like side cannons, if they had a good profile, would be solid. Yeah, and the psychic keyword, yeah. This faction probably gets hit the worst by anti-psychic effects too. The fact that all of their force, like all their melee attacks, are psychic is like kind of a travesty. They just get like so. If the Thousand Suns player doesn't make a mistake, they get so domed by just Psychic Dominion out of Thousand Suns with like no recourse. For whatever reason, Grey Knights don't have any. The army of entirely composed of guys with psychic hoods don't have anti-psychic effects. Cool. All right, fair enough. But instead, they play against Thousand Suns, a bunch of goobers with pointy sticks, and get absolutely out psychicked into oblivion. This whole army used to have a 5+ feel no pain against mortal wounds. That was their whole thing. They just had that baked in. Ugh. Happy when the psychic keyword triggers a Gladius style detachment? Yeah, it could also be a detachment thing for sure. Like, Mists of Deimos is incredible, and Prognosticated Arrival is incredible, but to be honest, you could basically leave the entire rest of this detachment at home. Like, losing True Civil Armor would be unfortunate, but it's probably not the end of the world if you get other good defensive mechanics. But the rest of the stratagems are, like, really not very good. Radiant Strike is good specifically on Drago. But, like, Haloed and Soulfire got the Lone Operative treatment, the 18-inch Lone Operative treatment, and costs 2, and is used in your own turn. You can't use it reactively. Like, it's so weird. They're basically just like Mists of Deimos, the faction. And the Teleport Strike is their army ability, so they don't even lose Teleport Assault if you were to move detachments around. You would just lose your auto 6 on advanced rolls, which is like, who cares? Okay. It's very, very occasionally strong, especially on Nemesis Red Knights, but otherwise very bad. Yeah. So I think it's like kind of, yeah, it's kind of compounded. The real issue is that they just lack any offensive punch, which I think is okay, but you have to be willing to not play the fighting game, which is very difficult to do. Use Radiant Strike on Grandmaster sometimes. It's only costs when you can fish for mortals against vehicles and monsters. Yeah, it's actually not too bad. Because he discounts strats, right? Yeah, I guess with your rerolling, it's pretty good. Also, why does the Nemesis Grandmaster reroll once per battle round? Can we talk about that real quick? Like, let's look at that fucking guy's data sheet. I played against Nemesis Dread Knights a couple weeks ago, and in my head, it was once per phase. It was like once per turn in the fight phase. And then my opponent's like, I think it's once per battle round, so I can't use it because I used it on your turn. And I was just like, what? Excuse me? Why? Like, I understand one model from your army in the fight phase can use this. Sure, you don't want to encourage spamming Nemesis Dread Knights, Nemesis Grandmasters. I understand it. Why is it restricted to the battle round? It's so wild. Yeah, absolutely insane. I just don't get it. I just don't get it, chat. Especially because they're so low reliability otherwise, right? 5 attacks on 3s at 14 3d6 plus 1. So, like, you have like a coin flip's chance of hitting 2 times with your random damage weapon. So like you need the rerolls to be in any way reliable, and even then it's still very dicey because you probably drop 1 or 2 over the course of all the rerolls. Like rerolling 3s into 3s is like a little bit fishy. Yeah, man. Ugh, what the hell. Where's the extra 14 attacks? It's true. The Nemesis Great Hammer is suspiciously close to a Haruspex biting you, actually. It's 1 extra attack and 1 extra AP, but otherwise it's identical. That's very funny. Where are your 14 extra attacks? Here's the thing. When they swing their weapon, right? So they replace their weapon with... they replace their fist, which is a non-psychic weapon, which it's sad to say that is an upgrade, that their fist attack is not Nemesis. Jesus. They replace it with either the hammer or the sword. It's weird that they don't get like a 2-fist profile that's like twin-linked or something, and then they can replace that with a hammer and an extra attack profile, because the model has the melee weapon and then an empty hand. What is the other hand doing? I guess like maybe they 2-hand the weapon or something, but like that would certainly help the cause, right? If it had like 6 extra infantry sweepers or something, suddenly it's not quite as worried about the fact that it only has 5 attacks. You can chip a little bit of damage from its other attacks. Also, this Dreadfist melee profile is like super trash anyway. I don't know. It's so bizarre. Yeah, in 9th they got to keep the fist profile. Yeah, 9th edition was a different time, right? 9th edition, like the rules for weapons work totally differently. Through all of 8th edition, you could just put your weapon away and attack with your close combat weapon profile, which. So, always kind of funny, especially if your hands were swords. You could be like, nah, I'm not going to use them. I just elbow. Boop, boop. But it's like weird that this guy doesn't even have the opportunity to do that. You hit an Eversor Assassin, suddenly he's like, you hit him with this huge hammer, and he's like, nah, I'm good. You don't even have the option to hit him with the fist. It doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. Oh, chat. We've talked a lot about Grey Knights in the last couple weeks. It is weird that they are... in quite a poor spot. Quite a poor spot right now. What? I think that if the meta moves like a little bit more towards kind of this melee-oriented infantry lists, Grey Knights might be okay, but it would require them to leave their Nemesis Dread Knights at home. I don't know any Grey Knight player who's excited to do that. Anyway, folks, I think we're gonna go ahead and start ramping things up here because we're running kind of long today. Now, this isn't going to be the end of streaming today. I will be live over on my Twitch. Do I have a command for Twitch? Let's find out. Will my bot post to Twitch in the chat? No. All right, well, I will do it. Please come hang out with me over on Twitch, twitch.tv/TacticalTortoiseTV. I'm going to be live in about 2 hours. We're going to be playing... I got all the Storm Speeders. I have 9 Storm Speeders versus Awakened Dynasty Necrons. I don't know. I feel like I say this too often, but it's like a bunch of Doomsday Arcs and Lich Guard. I don't think I can kill the Lich Guard. So thank you for the follow, by the way, over there. Caldoran over on Twitch. I don't think I can kill the Lich Guard. I don't think I just like don't have the right profiles to do it. Maybe if my whole army attacks them. But obviously, Awakened Dynasty wants nothing more than your whole army to attack the Lich Guard. So I might have to play the avoidance game with them. We'll see how that goes. But I'm excited for the game. I think it's going to be tough, but we'll find out. So yeah, everybody, I'm gonna pop off all the hail strikes. Yeah, we'll just roll a bunch of attacks, winning on 6s with those fucking hail strikes, dude. Oh god, they're so bad. They're so trash. Anyway, folks, I'm gonna pop off. Thanks everyone for hanging out with me. And you're gonna get redirected to tomorrow's stream, which is already scheduled 10 a.m. US Eastern Time tomorrow. We're gonna be talking about Genestealer cults. Thank you for chilling with me today. I'll see you on Twitch later today, and then over on YouTube tomorrow. So, cheers.